But everything that we've got to say about this guy, normally when we prep for a press conference, we go, well, we'll say this and we'll say this. But this guy is so repulsive and so ridiculous and so outrageous that we have edited it for public consumption, but you're just not going to believe some of the stuff we discovered. We're joined today by Brad Copley, who is going to be one of the prosecutors that's assigned to this guy. But I want to show you a picture of James Balone. He's known by the kids as Papa Jim. And here's what occurred. In July 13th, we issued a search warrant where he was taken into custody. And at that time, we put him in jail, where he is today, on child pornography charges. But we seized 52 electronic devices, computers, hard drives, iPads, iPhones, cell phones, all kinds of devices, 52. And the investigation began. And our detectives did an outstanding job because, quite frankly, they could have stopped with the initial charges, which were significant, and he would have been locked up for a very long time. But our focus with our child victim investigators and our child predator investigators and our child pornography investigators is find the victims. Find the victims. And that's what they did. We found out, and I will go through this in phases, that Papa Jim had access to 23 children, at least 23 children, and we suspect there could be many, many more than that. So here's what occurred. As we are going through, we discover that he has 4,500 child pornography images. Of that 4,500 child pornography images, most of them are just photographs, some of them are video clips. We recognize from many of them they are floating around in the child pornographer's world. However, we found some that were unique. We then discovered 4 local child victims that we can identify. And here's how we were able to do that. When you talk about the 23 children that he had access to, we know that he had a carpet cleaning business. And his carpet cleaning business was by and large commercial, but he would clean houses, especially if there were young children there. He would recruit people to work for him in his child cleaning business. And guess what? He liked to recruit young ladies who had small children. The 4 victims that we found was a 6-year-old young lady, little girl, who he showed obscene materials to. There was an 11-year-old little girl that actually saw pornography and said she witnessed Papa Jim and his wife engaged in sexual conduct. He had a video camera, or a camera if you will, set up in his bedroom that would broadcast out to a monitor in another room. We discovered 2 young males. Both of them were 2 at the time, that he took child pornography or created child pornography with, or manufactured is the terminology, child pornography. We found that at least the 2 young ladies and the children could see from the monitor any sexual activity that was happening between the man and his wife in another bedroom. That's according to one of the children. He had a room in his home. He called it an office or a bedroom that he wouldn't allow his wife to go in. He would volunteer to keep the employees' young children. He would take them to stores and buy them stuff. He would victimize very, very young children that were so young that they were nonverbal. And he would take them into a special room. He, once the children became verbal and could talk to mom and tell what was occurring, would quit victimizing them. One of the 2-year-olds that we discovered that he victimized is now 8 years old. And thankfully, he has no recollection of being sexually abused as a baby. His wife worked at an assisted living facility, and she worked a night shift. So he had whatever period of time she left in the evenings or at nights to abuse these children without the knowledge of his wife. We have a picture of a 2-year-old that he victimized, and there were pictures when the child was dressed to when the child was undressed to when the child was completely nude, to which ultimately there were photographs where the child was sexually battered.
So he documented all this?
He documented it. We believe that there are many more victims. Quite frankly, I suspect that many of his victims aren't even aware they're victims because they've grown up and they were nonverbal at the time, but certainly we believe that there are parents or grandparents that might have said, well, I was wondering why he was overtly friendly. So when you look at this, and let me stop here, I've got a lot of notes, you got to look at old Papa Jim and understand that his very first arrest for sexually battering a child who was only 4 years of age occurred when he was 20 years old, and he's now 53. He pled to a misdemeanor in the state of New York and was given 60 days in jail. The next year, 1984, he was arrested again in the state of New York. He spent about 7 months in lockup there, and then was discharged with a $40 fine when he was 20 and 21 years of age. This guy has been a sexual predator his entire adult life. And what scares me to death is what about all the victims and all the children we don't know about that he focused on in between. The detectives kept working. They found that children were interested in going to his house. He had trampolines, he had a swimming pool, he had lots of kids' toys. He would take the kids to Chuck E. Cheese. He would take them to all of the child fun activities in the community. He would call up and offer to take care of the children. He had all the latest electronics that would interest children. He would also clean daycare centers. He looked for any opportunity to be around children. He would take the little children into this private room in order to change their diapers. He would be there by himself. The detectives described to me of the 4,500 videos and images of child pornography, literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of the 4,500 were of infants and toddlers. In case you didn't get a good look at a real live child predator, a sexual deviant, a person who doesn't deserve the air he breathes, but we're going to make sure the criminal justice system has the opportunity to appropriately deal with him because he's charged with capital felonies. Our goal is to keep him in prison. This is the only way you'll keep him from children, because he not only grooms the children, he grooms the parents, and he provides opportunity. We all know parents are busy. Parents become overloaded, and here's this guy, he'll be glad to watch your child this afternoon or this evening, but when you run the errands. After all, he's your boss, or maybe he's your neighbor, or maybe he's a friend, or maybe he's somebody you met along life's way, and he seems like a really, really nice guy. Child predators act really, really, really nice because that's how they groom parents. We're making sure that all of the victims that we've identified have access to victim services. We're looking for other victims. Do we know there are other victims? You bet there are. Will we find them? Only if the community helps us. The detectives dug into this case because not only did we have the child porn, but they really believed that there was more going on. And as we say in law enforcement, it's a clue when you've got 52 different devices. Count them, 52. He thought he was doing a good job of hiding this stuff. What he failed to recognize, he was up against the best computer child investigators there are any place in the nation. They kept digging in. When we arrested him, something very interesting happened. It started out as a proactive arrest, and the news media covered it. And when the news media covered it, a guy that works as a mechanic at a local car dealership called us up and said, "Hey, this Jim Balone you just arrested, I bought a computer from him this morning that he sold. I want to turn that in. I don't want anything to do with it." So we went and picked the computer up, and on face value to a novice, there was no photographs of child pornography. But when our forensic experts looked at the hard drive, you could see all of the child pornography that had been there that was erased off the top level of the computer. So we picked up even more evidence because of the news media coverage. A witness came forward and said, "This guy sold me this computer this morning. I don't want any part of it." That's the kind of community we appreciate. Now, so he goes to jail, and he apologizes when he's talking on the phones, which are recorded. It's no secret, we tell everybody. When he talks to the detective, he made a statement such as, "I knew this was coming. I don't know why this is bothering me so bad." And then it's interesting to me, he told his wife, he says, "Don't let that devil back into my house." Well, that devil happens to be our detective with a search warrant. He thinks he's a devil. I happen to think of him as an angel that was protecting children. But what was really interesting is he made the statement that God's not going to let him go to prison. You know, I talked to God. And I know God lets people go to prison every day that deserve it. And I just bet that my communication with God about him being an evil person is clear. And his idea that God's not going to let him go to prison is folly. But I'm not speaking for God. I can tell you this. He's a bad guy. He's a real bad guy. And it delights us to lock people up that do these things. I would like to tell you he's the only one in the entire universe like that. But they're across the state of Florida and across the United States and around the world, and they're looking for your children online, or they're looking to groom you to get access to your children. If you know any more about this guy, or if he's ever sat for your child, let us know. We would like to know if other photographs he has in his possession are child pornography that he manufactured. Now, we know a lot of it was downloaded from the web, but we suspect that he may have manufactured other child pornography. We know he has victimized other children. We just have to find them. Any questions?
You say 23 kids that he had access to, and it's kind of an ambiguous term, and I understand maybe it's to protect the identity, but in this case, you know, people in the community, there's going to be concern. Can you be any more specific as to what has had access to?
When I say 23 children he's had access to, have you let him babysit your child? Has he ever been in charge of a civic group that involved children? Has he ever been the leader at a church group? We don't see any evidence of that, by the way. But if your child has ever been in the company of this guy, or if you ever allowed your child to stay with this guy, he had this set up. I mean, it was a child magnet. Children wanted to go there to spend time with Papa Jim. He had the toys, the trampolines, the pools, the electronic devices. He would take children to the store and buy them stuff. He called up one lady and said, "Hey, what's your son doing this afternoon?" "Oh, not much." "Well, I got to go to the store. Would he like to go with me?" And he takes him to the child's department and buys him toys. He's grooming the child. And he's taking care of the youngster for a while so mom can do some household chores or some running around that she needs to do. What we don't want parents to do is to be embarrassed. You've been taken advantage of, parents. You've been groomed to get access to your children. You're a victim. The children are a victim. We want to bury this guy under so many criminal charges that he can never, ever, ever get out.
Sheriff Jenny said that he had a wife, and that some of the activities involved his wife. How culpable is she in all of this?
Denial is a powerful thing. She tells a different story. If we were able to have criminal charges against her at this point in time, she'd be locked up in the county jail too. We don't have that. It's not unusual for wives to ignore, be in denial, be at work. I mean, we can see evidence where she was legitimately out of the house when a lot of this went on.
You mentioned the children being able to see him and his wife having sex. Was she aware that the kids were seeing that?
She said absolutely not. She denies it.
How long have they been married, do you know?
They've been married a long time, I believe.
Were they married when he had his original charges in New York?
No. How many years? 22 years they've been married.
Was that system set up so that he could show off? And the second part of the question is, if it was it set up that kids could watch?
It was set up so children could see whatever was happening in that room.
Can you explain those pictures that we're looking at?
This is inside the house, just how he had the house set up to be intriguing and interesting to children. And this was the car seats and stuff that he had.
Just to be clear, he doesn't have any kids of his own?
He doesn't have any small children of his own that I'm aware of.
And so the wife just thinks he's a great guy with kids, with these kind of...
Well, that's correct.
So that's not the special room that he had for himself?
One of those may be the special room. This was defined as an office/bedroom.
How did he get away with this for so many years, especially that he was being arrested when he was 20 and...
You know, in 1983 in New York, how in the world they allowed him to get away with such minor events is beyond me. But we have said over and over, for those of you who've not seen the litany of news conferences I've had, child predators and child pornographers do not change their personality. That's what they like. They are, and they always will be. And as a result, we have evidence here to back that up. The first time he was arrested was when he was 20, but how many other children did he babysit at 18 or 19 or 17 or 16? This guy is a sexual deviant with a capital S.
Anything these parents could have done? I mean, to me, if some man's asking me to hang out with my child, I'm going to say no.
Keep in mind that when we have evidence that he was sexually abusing these children. He was sexually abusing these children when they were nonverbal. When they would become verbal and could talk and tell on him, he stopped. We talked to a 3-year-old who described what was supposedly happening to the 3-year-old, and that's when he pushed back on that. This little fella at 3 was more cognizant and aware of how he was being abused than our suspect thought.
What was the name of his business?
I don't know. I don't remember off the J&K Carpet Cleaning.
Sheriff, you would say, I mean, these child porn arrests, you do them all the time at this point, but for the most part, those images, videos are not of local, they're not manufactured locally, or they're not of local children in this
Well,
area.
a lot of the child porn, every time you see a child porn image, it's a real child, and the child's been victimized. And every time that's shared, the child is victimized again. But this stuff floats around the nation and around the world. Our focus is to always try to find the victims in every case, because we know the victims are out there, and we know with all the modern technology that child porn that was once very difficult to make because you had to depend on someone else you trusted to process it, now you can literally create child porn and send it through the airwaves immediately. So our focus is always to find the children. And it is a happy day for us when we find this guy. But everybody we arrest with possession of, let me say that again, everyone we arrest in possession of child porn, and every one of these child predators we arrest potentially live up to the same billing as this guy. It's just we can't develop the evidence against them. These folks are rabid, and they're focused, and they're dangerous. And that's why we send the message out. You've got to pay attention. Even your little bitty children on your iPhone or your iPad are playing. I mean, we've got little bitty grandkids in my house who love the games on the iPhone and the iPad. They run to grandma and granddad's for the iPhone and the iPad. But you guess what? We set the game up, and we watch them, and we monitor it, and they're not communicating with anybody. They're playing a select game that we watch, because that's how easy they can get to your children if you don't monitor it every second. And if you say, oh, I can't monitor it every second, then take the dadgum device away from them. You need to be their parent, not their best friend. If you are their parent today, you'll be their best friend when they grow up.
You
How much
mentioned the
later?
two boys who were 2 and they're now 8.
One's
Yeah.
2. One was 2 when he was victimized. He's now 8. The other one is a relatively new victim. Is still a very young child.
How recently do you think this activity occurred?
Well, it was occurring on a normal basis, we suspect. And that's why we're so passionate about parents come to us if you let this guy keep your child.
On a much lighter issue, on pigs, I understand you're the proud new owner of maybe 180 or so pigs. React to that, the fact that you were given responsibility for them?
Oink, oink. We are waiting for the written court order. We got the verbal court order that we have the pigs awarded to us. The pigs were certainly, it started out as a rescue operation and it turned to a hoarding operation, and these pigs weren't fed more than a couple times a week. Some of them were in pretty decent shape. A lot of them were very, very sick. Some of them had to be put down because they were so malnourished that we could not recover them. However, the vast majority of everything that was awarded to us is recovering and doing better. We are looking for rescues right now to adopt out these pigs, and the sooner we adopt them out, the better off. We understand that PETA's working with us, and we hope they show up with a big PETA truck and want every one of them.
There's got to be some kind of a deadline. You can't feed them forever. So,
Well, we are confident that we'll be able to find someone to rescue them.
Sheriff, early on, after this investigation, there was some outrage on PETA, people, animal rights groups saying that PETA sat on this for 2 months and didn't go to watch these pigs suffer and could have went to you much sooner, but they didn't. Should they have acted sooner?
That's interesting because when we worked with PETA, they spent 2 months on this investigation or thereabout. They came to us one day. We had a search warrant light the next morning, the next day, and 2 days later we had the case wrapped up. PETA was shocked. They said, you know, we still have a case pending in another state from April. They didn't think we could act that fast. We act with a sense of urgency. PETA did not need to fool with that case for 2 months, but better late than never. I wish they'd have spent a day in there and then came to us, because we could have wrapped this thing up and saved the pain and agony of those pigs 2 months earlier. We had no knowledge they were undercover. They went in, did their own thing. They'll have to account for that. But I can tell you this, when we go in and we see suffering animals, we deal with it right now. We deal with it as if it were our own animal. And it's not a heavy-duty decision. The question is, do you want to eat today? Well, yes. Well, so do the animals. It's easy.
Dr. Balloon, do you have any evidence that you distributed the pornography that you created?
We see where he's turned over pornography. He has received and passed on pornography. We don't see evidence that these children have been passed on. That doesn't mean they have it. It just means it hasn't looped back around to us. Anything else you want to talk about? I got a pretty cool thing we can talk about. You want to talk about something else while we're talking? Yeah. Listen, that way if you have a slow night side, you can give it to them. Okay, here's the deal. This is pretty interesting, and it's a lot lighter. This stuff, I know that comes as a shock to you. This stuff works me up. I can't stand this. That, you know, this guy is evil in the flesh. Can you tell? So let's do something lighter. Take a deep breath. Okay, so here's the deal. On September the 4th, there's a stolen gray GMC pickup truck out of Winter Haven. Lakeland has a burglary at Lakeside Village on September the 5th about 1 in the morning. Now, we all know where that is. That's a long way from the central area. They break into a jewelry store and they steal jewelry. And they flee from Lakeland. Well, interestingly enough, at about 3 o'clock, 2 hours later, deputies are up at Posner Park looking for what? Burglary suspects when they see this suspicious truck lurking around. The deputies get behind the vehicle and run the tag, and voila, it's stolen. The vehicle starts south on 27. The Haines City Police Department is, is on our frequency. So as we're following them down 27, we're trying to get air support up, get our canines in position, and that's working out pretty well. As we get everybody together, Haines City Police is helping us. When we enter Haines City, they are the ones that actually initiate the pursuit. We chase them south on Highway 27. They hit stop sticks, which the police and the deputies have set up. We are able to flatten the tires. They continue to flee for a short distance, and they run off of the road. Now, you believe that at that point in time, they just be reputable burglars and give up. But oh no, they decide they're going to run on foot. We catch one of them rapidly. Are you ready for this? The other one not only flees from us running, but he jumps inside a fenced compound. You're talking about a crazy criminal. Well, we put the dog inside the fenced compound too and apprehended him with a canine. So now we've got both of them in jail. We locked them up. They're juveniles. The Lakeland Police Department is working their end of the case, and as I understand, has 2 other suspects that they're working on in addition to what we're doing. We recovered the stolen property, and quite frankly, now we're on 27 on the total other side of the county. And we're trying to figure out in the middle of the night where this stolen property can come from, because we didn't have any thefts. We coordinate with Lakeland. Our teams are working great together as a result. We lock these rascals up. And the moral of the story is this: don't steal vehicles, break into stuff, and flee from us in Polk County, because we will catch you and put you in jail. It was pretty exciting. It was textbook. It worked perfect. You can run, you can flee, but you're only going to go to jail tired. Okay? Anything else? Y'all take care.
What jewelry store did they break into in Lakeside Village?
The one that has jewelry in it. I don't know which one.
I think there's only one.
Is there only one? See there? There's someone who shops. All I know is they didn't break in Fish City. That's where I eat. See y'all later. Thank you very much. Y'all be safe. Okay. I don't know if Jerry will get them. If you do, we'll give it to you.